You know what happens when you try to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded? You're turning and twisting, convinced you're making progress, but when you finally take off the blindfold, it's more scrambled than when you started. That's exactly what happens when men try to understand female psychology using male logic. You're using the wrong operating system, trying to run iOS software on an Android phone. Today I'm going to show you the actual code that runs in women's minds. Not the version they tell you about, not the romanticized fairy tale, but the raw, unfiltered algorithm that drives every decision, every test, every manipulation. And here's the warning. Once you see this, you can't unsee it. Once you understand how the female brain actually processes reality, every interaction you've ever had will suddenly make horrifying sense. Let me start with the most devastating truth. Women don't think like you, not because they're from Venus or whatever nonsense, but because their entire psychological operating system was designed for a completely different purpose than yours. While men evolved to solve problems, hunt, build, protect, women evolved to extract resources, ensure survival through manipulation, and control without physical strength. This isn't sexism, this is evolutionary psychology. And pretending it's not true is why you keep losing the game you don't even know you're playing. I've seen it countless times in my work. A man comes to me confused, broken, says, "I gave her everything she wanted, why did she leave?" Brother, that's exactly why she left. Because the moment you gave her everything, you became worthless, a conquered territory, a solved puzzle. The game was over, and women don't stay where the game has ended. They need constant challenge, constant stimulation, constant proof that you're worth the biological investment. The moment you stop being a challenge, you stop existing as a man in her eyes. You probably heard about that study where they monitored brain activity during relationship conflicts. When men argued, their problem-solving centers lit up. When women argued, their emotional and memory centers exploded like fireworks. You're trying to fix the leaky faucet while she's replaying every time you forgot to call, every birthday you slightly messed up, every moment you made her feel less than perfect. You're in the present. She's in every moment that ever existed simultaneously. Here's the algorithm that runs female decision-making, and pay attention because this explains everything. First variable, how does this make me feel right now? Not tomorrow, not in 5 years, right now. Second variable, what can I extract from this situation? Time, attention, resources, status. Third variable, how does this affect my position relative to other women? Because despite all the sisterhood talk, women are in constant, brutal competition with each other. Fourth variable, can I do better? This calculation runs 24/7, like Bitcoin mining but for relationship options. The female brain doesn't process loyalty the way men do. You think loyalty means staying through thick and thin. She thinks loyalty means you continuing to win the competition for her attention every single day. The moment you stop competing, you've abandoned her. In her mind, your complacency is betrayal. Your contentment is neglect. Your satisfaction is rejection. She needs you to be hungry, desperate, fighting for her even after 20 years of marriage. Because if you're not fighting for her, it means she's not worth fighting for. There was this case that perfectly illustrates female logic. A woman leaves her husband because he's emotionally unavailable, gets with a guy who showers her with attention. 6 months later, she leaves him because he's too needy. The husband wasn't emotionally unavailable, he was stable. The new guy wasn't needy, he was attentive. But her brain doesn't process absolute values, only relative changes. She doesn't want a specific amount of attention. She wants the feeling of winning attention. She wants to feel like she's conquering you every day, not like she's already conquered. You know what happens when scientists study female social dynamics? They find something fascinating. Women's brains literally sync up when they're together, their menstrual cycles align, their speech patterns merge, their opinions converge. But here's what nobody talks about. This synchronization is competitive, not cooperative. They're not becoming friends, they're establishing hierarchy. Every compliment is a power move, every shared secret is ammunition, every girls' night is a reconnaissance mission. As you might have heard, there's this thing called the female social matrix. Every woman exists in an invisible web of comparisons. She doesn't evaluate her relationship based on whether she's happy, she evaluates it based on whether she's happier than her friends. She doesn't want a good man, she wants a better man than other women have. This is why social media destroyed relationships. Now she's not just comparing you to her friends' boyfriends, but to every relationship highlight reel on the internet. You're not competing against real men anymore. You're competing against a fantasy composite of every perfect moment from every relationship that's ever been posted online. The must-have, don't-want paradox drives men insane. She demands commitment but loses attraction when you commit. She wants you to be emotional but loses respect when you cry. She wants you to be successful but resents the time success requires. This isn't confusion or contradiction, it's feature, not bug. She's not testing what you'll give her, she's testing if you're smart enough not to give it. Every demand is actually a test of your strength. Will you maintain frame or will you fold? The moment you fold, you fail, even though folding is exactly what she asked for. This happened to someone who thought he'd figured it out. His girlfriend constantly complained he didn't share his feelings. So he opens up, tells her about his fears, his struggles with depression after his father died. Within 2 weeks she's distant. Within a month she's gone. Later she tells a mutual friend, "I just couldn't see him as a protector anymore." She didn't want his feelings. She wanted to know she could break down your walls if needed. Once the walls were down, you became useless. The test wasn't about getting the information, it was about seeing if the information could be gotten. Let me explain the resource extraction protocol that runs in every female brain. It's not conscious, it's not evil, it's biological. Women are physically vulnerable during pregnancy and child-rearing. Evolution programmed them to constantly test and ensure resource availability. Every shit test, every comfort test, every demand, it's all checking if the resource stream is still flowing. Can you still provide? Can you still protect? Are you still worth the biological investment? But here's where modern society broke the system. Women no longer need individual men for resources. They have careers, government support, infinite options on dating apps. But the extraction protocol still runs. So now she's extracting validation, attention, emotional labour, lifestyle experiences, things that didn't exist in our evolutionary environment. She's running Stone Age software in a digital world, and you're the one getting the blue screen of death. You know what happens in female-only spaces? I've analysed thousands of conversations from women's forums, group chats, comment sections. 70% of discussion is about extracting more from men. 20% is about appearance to attract higher value men. 5% is competing with other women. 3% is sex. 2% is everything else. Career, hobbies, personal growth, philosophy, everything men assume women think about. 2%. The other 98% is about optimizing male utility. The guilt-fear operating system is how women control without physical dominance. She can't beat you physically, so she beats you psychologically. First, she installs guilt. You're not doing enough, you're not romantic enough, you're not emotional enough. Then she activates fear. I might leave, I might find someone better, I might not love you anymore. Now you're running her program. Every decision you make processes through her guilt-fear filter. Will this upset her? Will this make her leave? You've become a puppet running her code. You know what happens when you watch how mothers raise their sons versus daughters? The programming starts from birth. Boys are told they must earn love through achievement, must prove their worth, must never be enough. Girls are told they deserve love for existing. They're princesses. They're special just for being. This creates men who constantly seek approval and women who constantly withhold it. The system is rigged from the beginning, and your own mother was probably the first one to install this software in your brain. There was this psychological experiment where they had couples play a resource allocation game. When women had control of resources, they shared less than men. When they didn't have control, they demanded more than men. The conclusion: women's resource strategy is purely extractive, take when weak, hoard when strong. Men's strategy was protective share when strong, conserve when weak. Completely different operating systems. I've observed this pattern thousands of times. Woman enters, relationship sweet, loving, sexual. Man commits. Woman gradually reduces affection, increases demands. Man tries harder. Woman loses respect. Man panics, doubles efforts. Woman disgusted leaves or cheats. Man confused. But I did everything she asked. That's the point. You followed her program instead of running your own. She gave you a test disguised as an instruction manual, and you failed by following the instructions. The female brain processes male weakness like kryptonite. Not because women are cruel, but because weakness signals genetic inferiority. Her ancestors who mated with weak men didn't survive. So evolution gave women a weakness detection system more sensitive than any technology we've created. She can sense your insecurity through text message timing. She can smell your fear through your word choice. She can feel your desperation through your gift selection. A millisecond of hesitation in your voice during a phone call, and her attraction drops 10%. You probably heard that women are more emotional than men. Wrong. Women are more tactical with emotions. They weaponize feelings while men are victimized by them. When she cries, it's often strategy. When she's angry, it's usually calculation. When she's sad, it's frequently manipulation. She's not more emotional. She's more skilled at using emotions as tools. You think emotions are problems to solve. She knows emotions are weapons to deploy. Here's something that will break your brain. Women don't actually want equality. They want selective equality. Equal pay? Yes. Equal accountability? Number. Equal opportunities? Yes. Equal responsibilities? Number. They want equality where it benefits them and special treatment where equality would cost them. This isn't hypocrisy, it's optimization. Their brain is constantly calculating maximum benefit with minimum cost. When she says she wants equality, she means she wants your advantages added to her advantages, not actual equality. You know what happens when you observe professional dynamics? Women in beauty professions, hairstylists, nail technicians, estheticians, they see wealthy women all day. They hear about trips, gifts, lifestyles they don't have, and they go home to you, comparing. Why can't you provide that? Why am I stuck here serving these women instead of being them? The resentment builds not from what you're not doing, but from what she sees others getting. Her reference point isn't reality. It's the highlight reel of every client who sat in her chair. As you might have noticed, women's communication isn't about exchanging information. It's about establishing dominance, extracting validation, and gathering intelligence. When she tells her friends about your relationship problems, she's not seeking advice. She's establishing that she's the victim, you're the villain, and she deserves better. The friend's job is to validate this narrative, not provide actual solutions. It's a ritual, not a consultation. The comparison engine never stops running. Every woman you interact with, your girlfriend is calculating. Is she prettier, younger, thinner? Would you choose her? Every man she interacts with, she's calculating. Is he taller, richer, more confident? Could I get him? This isn't conscious cheating. It's involuntary optimization. Her brain literally cannot stop comparing and calculating alternatives. It's like having a stock trading algorithm running 24/7, constantly looking for better investments. There's this thing called female dialectical thinking. Women can hold completely contradictory beliefs simultaneously without experiencing cognitive dissonance. She can believe you're the love of her life and that she deserves better. She can believe marriage is sacred and that divorce is always an option. She can believe in loyalty while keeping backup options. This isn't lying, it's a different processing system. Truth isn't binary for women, it's contextual. What's true in this moment might not be true in the next, and both truths are equally valid in her mind. You know what happens when researchers study female friendship? They find it's primarily transactional. Women maintain friendships based on resource exchange, emotional support, social validation, network access. When the transaction becomes imbalanced, the friendship ends. Men maintain friendships based on shared experiences and mutual respect. Completely different operating systems, which is why women can't understand male friendship and men can't understand female drama. The hypergamy protocol is hard-coded into female DNA. She's biologically programmed to seek the highest value male available. But here's the cruel joke. Available is constantly recalculating. Every new man she meets, every success story she hears, every relationship she sees on social media adjusts her baseline. You're not competing against other men. You're competing against an ever-inflating standard that exists only in her imagination. The bar doesn't just rise, it exponentially increases based on perceived possibilities. This happened to someone recently. Built a business for 10 years, finally successful. Wife supported him through the struggle, or so he thought. The moment he made it, she left. Said he'd changed, became distant. Reality? Her hypergamy calculator updated. Successful him could get better women, so she no longer felt special. She didn't leave because he changed. She left because her relative position decreased. Her value proposition went from supportive wife who believed in him to lucky woman who held him back. Women don't experience love the way men do. You fall in love and want to lock it down forever. She falls in love and immediately starts testing if it's real. Your love is like concrete. Once it sets, it's solid. Her love is like water, constantly seeking its level, taking the shape of whatever container it's in, evaporating if not constantly maintained. This is why women can fall out of love overnight while men take years to let go. Different chemical processes, different psychological structures. The female brain categorizes men into 3 boxes: alpha, genes; beta, resources; and invisible, neither. You can move between categories, but each move is harder than the last. Start as beta, she'll never fully see you as alpha. Start as alpha and show beta traits, you'll never recover that alpha status. Start as invisible, you basically don't exist in her reality. These aren't conscious categories, they're biological filing systems. And here's the kicker, she needs both alpha and beta traits, but from different men, which is why she'll have a husband for resources and fantasize about the pool boy for genes. You know what's the most powerful revelation? Women aren't actually relationship builders, they're relationship extractors. All the talk about women being nurturers, keepers of the home, relationship experts, it's backwards. Women are relationship entropy. They consume relationship energy rather than create it. Men build the structure, maintain the structure, and women test how much they can extract before the structure collapses. When it does collapse, they move to the next structure and repeat the process. There was this experiment on an island. They separated men and women to see how they'd survive. The men immediately organized, divided labor, built shelter, established systems. Within days, they had a functioning micro-society. The women? They consumed all their supplies immediately, fought constantly, created nothing. When they added men to the women's group, the women immediately stopped working and expected the men to provide everything. When they added women to the men's group, the women started creating drama and breaking down the systems the men had built. This isn't culture, this is nature. You know what happens when you trace back every major societal collapse in history? You find the same pattern. Women gain influence, standards drop, accountability disappears, resources get redistributed from producers to consumers, birth rates collapse, society weakens, external forces conquer. Rome, Greece, Babylon, same pattern every time. Because when you optimize for female psychology, feelings over facts, comfort over challenge, security over freedom, you create weakness. And weakness gets conquered by strength. The modern dating market is just female psychology unleashed without restraint. No social shame, no consequences, no accountability. And what happened? Exactly what you'd predict if you understood female nature. 20% of men get 80% of female attention. Women would rather share a high-value man than commit to an average one. The average man becomes invisible while women complain, "Where have all the good men gone?" They're right there. You just can't see them because hypergamy has recalibrated your vision to only recognize the top tier. As you might have heard, women initiate 70% of divorces, but that statistic hides the real truth. Women end 100% of relationships. They just get men to do it half the time. How? By making life so miserable, withholding so much, creating so much drama that the man finally breaks and leaves. Then she gets to be the victim. "He left me." No, you drove him out, there's a difference. You know what's fascinating about female memory? It's completely revisionist. Every relationship she's ever had gets rewritten after it ends. The ex who she loved becomes an abuser. The husband she couldn't live without becomes a narcissist. The boyfriend she begged not to leave becomes a stalker. This isn't conscious lying. Her brain literally rewrites history to protect her ego. She was never wrong, never made bad choices, never the problem. It was always the man's fault. The validation economy runs 24/7 in the female brain. Every interaction is measured in validation units. Did he text back quickly enough? +2 units. Did he like her photo? +1 unit. Did he mention another woman? -5 units. She's constantly calculating her validation balance, and when it drops below her threshold, she creates drama to force a deposit. The drama isn't the problem, it's the solution to low validation reserves. As you probably noticed, women don't actually want solutions to their problems. When she complains, she's not seeking fixes, she's seeking validation that her feelings are justified. You offer solutions because your brain processes problems as things to solve. She rejects solutions because solving the problem would end the validation stream. The problem isn't the problem is the solution to getting attention. You know what happens when you truly grasp this? You understand that women see men as utilities, not partners. You're not a person to her, you're a Swiss Army knife of resources, emotional support tool, financial provision tool, social status tool, genetic material tool, validation tool. She doesn't love you, she loves what you provide. And the moment a better tool becomes available, or the moment you stop functioning optimally, you're replaced. Not because she's evil, but because that's how her operating system works. The female brain has no concept of honour, loyalty, or abstract principles. These are male concepts that we project onto women. She doesn't stay because it's the right thing to do. She stays because leaving hasn't become the better option yet. She doesn't tell the truth because honesty matters. She tells whatever version of truth serves her interests in that moment. She doesn't love you for who you are. She loves you for how you make her feel about herself. You know what happens when you study female-dominated societies? They don't exist, not because of patriarchal oppression, but because matriarchal societies self-destruct. When women control resources and power, birth rates collapse, productivity plummets, and the society either dies or gets conquered. Every matriarchal experiment in history has failed within generations, because female psychology is optimized for individual extraction, not collective building. The cruelest truth. Women despise men who understand this. The moment you reveal that you see through the operating system, you become the enemy, because the entire system depends on male ignorance. If men understood how female psychology actually works, the whole extraction protocol collapses. That's why women police each other so hard to maintain the illusion. One woman breaking ranks threatens the entire system. This is why women who tell men the truth about women are attacked more viciously by other women than by anyone else. But here's the thing. You can't unknow what you now know. You can't go back to believing in the fairy tale. You can't pretend that female love is like male love, that loyalty means the same thing, that her words match her programming. Once you see the code, every interaction becomes transparent. Every test becomes obvious. Every manipulation becomes visible. The choice is simple. Either accept the operating system and learn to work within it, or reject it and walk away. But you can't change it. Billions of years of evolution won't be overwritten by your love, your commitment, or your sacrifice. She runs her code. You run yours. The only question is whether those programs are compatible. Remember, her brain isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. The problem is you've been told it was designed for love, partnership, and loyalty. It wasn't. It was designed for survival, extraction, and optimization. And in the modern world, where survival is guaranteed and resources are infinite, that programming has become a monster that consumes everything in its path. The red button is in front of you. Push it and see women as they actually are, not as you wish they were. Or don't push it and keep wondering why your logical, loving, loyal approach keeps failing with creatures running completely different software. Because understanding how the female brain works isn't about hating women. It's about stopping the insanity of expecting them to think like men. They don't, they can't, they won't. And once you accept that, you can finally stop playing their game and start playing your own.